Newly obtained images show Denver school board members appearing to violate district policy as they work to get a safety whistleblower fired. Are Democrats about to bring back much of the tax plan that voters just overwhelmingly rejected? A sheriff has strong words for a prosecutor he says is mishandling cases and hurting trust in law enforcement.
I see a lot of Miss Stanley in people that I've arrested and put behind bars.
And a presidential honor for a trailblazing pilot who's making sure the path he made is followed by generations of Coloradans. That's tonight on Next. 100 days into the Denver Public Schools investigation that led to the firing of a popular school leader and whistleblower, the investigation hasn't been resolved. And now there are questions about how it started and whether that investigation has been abandoned after it was cited to fire a whistleblower on school safety. Here's Chris Vanderveen.
The story of McAuliffe's de-escalation room dominated newscasts for weeks. Two board members in particular held a series of press conferences to address just how serious the allegations were.
That's not a de-escalation room. That was a prison that I saw yesterday at McAuliffe International School.
A pair of investigations began, one from the school, the other from police. Yet 4 months into both,
hi, Chris,
we've found reason to doubt just how thorough this investigation has been.
Is now a good time?
This afternoon, I spoke to the mother of one of the two students who spent time in that room last school year.
My son actually appreciated having the room as an option for when he wasn't feeling his behavior was safe. So he does not have a negative view of this room at all.
We're not using her name to protect her child's anonymity. She says to date, an investigation that seemed so urgent on day one has yet to lead to her.
No, I have not heard from both Denver Police or Denver Public Schools. I have not been questioned by anyone about our situation.
Is that strange to you?
Yes, it is very strange to me.
If the investigation has a start date, it's likely August 2nd, the day Denver Public School Board members Aonte Anderson and Scott Esserman showed up at McAuliffe. Sources say with less of a request and more of a demand. Acting on an anonymous tip, they said they needed to see room 121E. With them, a former campaign employee for both, Hashim Coates. The visit appears to be a violation of the district's own policy, GP1-E. If an operational issue is raised by a community or staff member, board members will not undertake any independent investigation or research. The very next day, Director Anderson made public the results of his investigation and research.
Yesterday, along with Director Esserman, and we went and visited the McAuliffe campus and found room 121E.
At the time, the district was already investigating the school's principal, Kurt Dennis, after he did an interview with us discussing serious concerns he had about the district's safety policies. After news of the de-escalation room went public, the district fired Dennis. The night the board voted on the issue, Director Esserman seemed unapologetic about the possible violation of board policy.
I believe I happen to have a higher moral purpose that's more important than any particular self-imposed piece of policy governance. And that's to engage in ensuring that our children are safe.
We've received comments from both Anderson and Esserman. Director Anderson seems to be taking particular interest in the word investigation. He says him walking into McAuliffe to see the room for himself was not an investigation. And he only related this matter to the community, quote, in the interest of transparency. Esserman says he felt it was important to see the room with his own eyes. Kyle?
And Chris, another side benefit, you might call it, of this investigation remaining open for 4 months is that the district then doesn't have to share certain information with the public.
Yeah, there's a transparency issue at play here because as long as the investigation is ongoing, and it's now been ongoing for a number of months, all of our open records requests are denied because there is an open investigation. That's certainly a benefit for the district.
Chris, thank you. So some in the McAuliffe community have said that they feel that McAuliffe is being targeted for retribution by the school board and by DPS leaders. Teachers and community members are going to hold a public rally tomorrow. They say that they think that the outgoing school board may try to punish McAuliffe on their way out the door. At issue is whether McAuliffe will remain as an innovation school. Essentially, it gives McAuliffe more flexibility in what they do. Denver Public Schools will not say if McAuliffe's status is going to be decided by the school board at Thursday's meeting. The agenda has to be out by Wednesday. The organizers of tomorrow's rally before school say that they also fear that a number of McAuliffe staff members are about to be fired. Things that unite Coloradans: love of the Broncos, love of green chili, and dislike of Democrats' Prop HH tax plan. That thing went down by 18 points. Politics guy Marshall Zellinger looks at whether the Democrats who run the Capitol are just going to bring back a bunch of Prop HH's plans when their special session starts on Friday.
A no vote on Prop HH was supposed to mean Tabor refunds would be based on your income level. The less money you make, the lower your Tabor refund. The more money, the higher your Tabor refund. Except state lawmakers in their special session starting Friday can change that.
Everything is still being developed.
Democratic Senate President Steve Fenberg, who sponsored the bill that put Prop HH on the ballot, seemed confident that one part of Prop HH that failed, equal Tabor refunds for everyone, will pass during the special legislative session.
Do you support equal Tabor refunds in this special session?
I do, yeah. And I fully suspect that that will be a bill that's introduced, and I assume it'll pass.
Is it fair to change how Tabor gets refunded after the vote?
Marshall, you raise a great question. I think that's why we're in the process now.
Democratic House Speaker Julie McCluskey explained that the special session will not just be about Tabor refunds and minimizing property tax increases for next year only, but also providing rental assistance dollars. That was also part of Prop HH. But rental assistance required voters giving the state permission to keep and spend more Tabor dollars, which they said no to. Now, Democratic lawmakers are split on how much should be set aside with existing dollars.
I don't know if infighting is the right word, Marshall, but when it comes to, say, rental assistance, how much can we do right now in this moment for 2023?
Even before Prop HH failed, Republicans, who hold no power at the state capitol, called for a special session with bills that minimize property tax increases without providing backfill dollars for local governments that would miss out on property tax dollars. That seems to be a non-starter for Democrats in charge.
As a Democrat, as a leader in the legislature, I generally think if you're going to provide tax cuts, they should be equitable, and you should pay for them.
Here is what will be most interesting. How much of Prop HH will Democratic lawmakers resurrect and pass at the legislature, even though voters said no? As Fenberg said to me, and this is a quote, "You could also say if voters voted no, they clearly didn't want property tax relief. I don't know that that's an accurate statement," unquote.
I mean, did he say that with a straight face? Yes, because he's a professional. But there's going to be a reaction from people if they just cobble together all the parts of Prop HH that people rejected and then kind of put it back in front of folks.
Right, but they're limited to just next year. So like the long-term things, the changes to Tabor long-term, if that's what people didn't like, that can't happen in the special session. So I'm stuck on the blue book that said if you vote yes, this is what your Tabor refund will look like. If you vote no, this is what your Tabor refund will look like. Oh, by the way, this special session throws that out the window.
All right, starts Friday. We'll be watching. Marshall, thank you. Colorado's new 3-day waiting period to buy guns is going to stand for now. It's a loss for a gun rights group that's trying to get it paused, then overturned. This is the second month for this law that requires gun sellers to wait 3 days and do a background check before handing over a gun. The No Compromises gun group, Rocky Mountain Gun Owners, is suing. It's what they do. A federal judge today refused to suspend the waiting period while this works through the courts. Judge said the potential public safety benefits outweigh the harm to gun owners and businesses. Same gun group is also suing to stop a new state law that raises the minimum age to purchase a gun. That law is suspended by a judge while that lawsuit is heard. Over the Veterans Day weekend, you delivered a pretty big thank you to Colorado's veterans with disabilities because of your support for the nonprofit Adaptive Adventures. They help vets with adaptive bikes and adaptive gear for kayaking, hiking, climbing, all kinds of outdoor sports. It's also a big boost to vets' mental health as well. Your Word of Thanks microgiving campaign raised $20,000. Then an anonymous donor matched it, $40,000 raised. If you know of a nonprofit that could use help like that, shoot me a note. Next at 9news.com is the email.
If you fail to achieve justice, then you're not doing right by your victim.
A prosecutor in big trouble, and that sheriff taking a risk by talking to Next, saying the DA isn't doing right by crime victims. A pilot who opened doors for others is still there decades later, holding that door open. and even the White House has taken notice. A district attorney in Colorado is being compared to the criminals she prosecutes, and that comparison is coming from the Fremont County Sheriff. He told our Mark Salinger that DA Linda Stanley's legal trouble is impacting crime victims who aren't having their cases handled properly.
I've worked with 6, 7 district attorneys in my career. Some have been very good, some have been average, and one has been really bad.
Not holding back, Fremont County Sheriff Alan Cooper has sharp words for District Attorney Linda Stanley. She's now under investigation by the Colorado Supreme Court for withholding information from defense counsels, launching a secret investigation into a judge, and a long list of alleged violations.
Do you trust Linda Stanley to do large investigations?
No.
You don't trust her with anything?
No.
Sheriff Cooper is a Republican, just like DA Stanley. Yet he wants to see her out of office, even if that means Democratic Governor Jared Polis would likely replace her with a Democrat.
Everybody makes mistakes, but in my mind there's 2 types of mistakes. There's a mistake in judgment, but then there's a mistake in character, and a mistake in character is part of who you are, and that I can't fix. And that's what I told the Republican Central Committee is I can't fix Linda.
Cooper says he's filed multiple complaints with the Attorney Regulation Council against lawyers in the DA's office led by Linda Stanley. He says his office has presented cases to the district attorney that were turned down for no reason.
I know what makes a good case, and I know what makes a prosecutable case. And I've seen those dismissed out of hand.
Even though they should have been prosecuted?
They should have been prosecuted.
He says the people who lose are the victims who don't see justice. Stanley was censured in 2019 by the state for abandoning a client in a case. Charges in cases she's tried recently have been dismissed or lessened, in part because of court violations by the DA's office. Cooper says he's seen enough of her character to know she shouldn't be in office.
I see a lot of Miss Stanley in people that I've arrested and put behind bars. You know, that same thought process that it's everybody's fault but mine.
A couple of days ago, we heard from former Judge Ramsey Lama, who accused Linda Stanley of launching a secret investigation into his family to get retribution for rulings that he made. She could end up losing her law license if the Supreme Court investigation continues, as the number of elected officials and people in power speaking out against her continues to grow. The one person, Kyle, that we've never heard from is Linda Stanley herself. Tried to reach out again today, never heard back.
You know, those are just brutal comments from Sheriff Cooper. But I mean, he's honestly concerned that the work that his deputies do, work that they risk their lives to do, might not then be handled properly on behalf of crime victims.
Exactly. He says that they don't have an effective district attorney at this point. He says they're doing their job as normal, as deputies, as sheriff's deputies, but once it gets to that next level, to the prosecution in court, that's where he worries it all falls apart. Again, he says that the victims in all this are the victims of crimes that then don't see their cases being prosecuted properly.
Mark Salinger, you've been on this like white on rice, but this is a big deal if you do not have a functioning criminal justice system, and a big part of Colorado. Mark, thank you. Warm weekend, warm week ahead. Kathy Sabin is here with weather.
That's right, Kyle. But the big question is, what about next week? Thanksgiving, busy travel week, busy holiday week. Big changes, a major shift in the pattern. High pressure is our dominant feature, keeping the storm track to the north, allowing for gusty winds out of the south to push temperatures 10 degrees above average. 65 in Denver today, 10 degrees shy of a record, and 70s on the map today in east central Colorado. We have elevated fire danger as a result of the warmth, the wind, the dry weather, but cooler weather's coming and a chance for beneficial rain and snow across the state by the end of the week. We've cooled back to 45 now in Denver, 46 in Colorado Springs, and I'm happy to say the winds are a lot lighter across eastern Colorado, including Kiowa, Elizabeth, Parker, and down across Douglas County and Jefferson County. Winds may be returning tomorrow ahead of a deep trough of low pressure we're tracking off to the west. Southwest winds bringing in some high and mid-level cloud cover, but that's all it is, just cloud cover. We're not seeing much come out of those clouds on the ground in the form of rain or snow, but that will be changing Friday into Saturday. And a little wave ahead of the main system could bring a few snow showers to the high country as early as Thursday afternoon. Fair skies, light winds, and 40s this evening. And your extended forecast shows above average highs near 70 for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Mountain snow Friday and Saturday, and maybe a few snow showers and colder weather for Denver on Sunday and Monday.
What better way to give back to our society than have these young people follow in my footsteps?
He was one of the first black pilots to fly for United. Captain Willie Daniels is helping more pilots of color get into the cockpit. That's next. Willie Daniels became a United pilot at a time when it was not always typical to see a black man at the controls. He's intent on making sure that that's not at all unusual anymore. Even the White House noticed Captain Daniels' work.
I grew up in the Southern California area, and my father would take us to air shows. The actual DeLorean that was in the movie Back to the Future, that's me as a pilot inside of it. My name is Willie L. Daniels II. So I'm a retired United Airlines captain, and I retired in November 2020 off of the Dreamliner.
Welcoming Captain Willie Daniels.
We started a series of airline symposiums this year because the need of the future workforce is so great. Boeing has produced numbers that said that by 2030, we're looking at worldwide shortages of airline pilots. So we're trying to help address that by going into the classrooms at a young age and inspiring these young students to become pilots, engineers, scientists, astronauts, you name it, to help build that future workforce. I started out with United 45 years ago. We work with all different demographics, but we can put a special emphasis in which we are doing on people of color. The economics, once they come into this area, it's just huge for their families. I got word about a month ago that I was going to receive the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award. Apostle Dr. Kenneth Curry, and he represents the White House. I had no idea. So, you know, there's an old saying, you know, be careful what you do because you never know who's watching. It's a huge honor, you know, and not only, you know, for me, but all of the folks that have helped me with these organizations, like what we're doing with Shades of Blue and Reaching the Future Workforce. This is not just for me. This is for all of those folks that have helped contribute to make our country better.
And Kyle has your feedback next.
The most Colorado thing we saw today is a six-legged race. Viewer named Valerie snapped this picture of some jogger hauling ass around Johnson Reservoir in Littleton the other day. Maybe they were out training for a burro race, which is an actual sport in Colorado. They do those up and down Guanella Pass. I don't know, he just likes taking the donkey for a jog every now and then. If you see something that looks like Colorado to you, and this certainly qualifies, email it to next@9news.com. Thought briefly that I'd been replaced back there for a second. AD writes in, thank you to everyone involved in the reporting on Denver Public Schools and McAuliffe. AD writes, I know researching these issues takes a lot of time and effort. I appreciate that you appreciate that, because that is what we try to do each night here on Next. Not to just give you quick hitters of, oh, look at some car crashes and fires, but whether it's Chris Vandeveen on school safety, Angeline McCall on the migrant crisis, Mark Salinger on the trouble in the DA's office, Marshall Zellinger taking apart XL Energy. We hope to give you deeper reporting here each night. So we'll see you next time.